February 14th, 1933. Bumpy Johnson was outnumbered 12-1. Dutch Schultz had sent his deadliest crew, Tommy the Executioner Vento, Marty Ice Pick Delaney, 10 more killers whose names even the police didn't know. They'd cornered Bumpy in the Cotton Club basement. No witnesses, no way out. Bumpy was 27 years old, still learning the game. Dutch was the most powerful mobster in New York. Everyone expected the same ending. Bumpy Johnson dead in a basement. But what Dutch didn't know, Bumpy Johnson didn't play by anybody's rules. 90 minutes later, only one of those 12 men walked out alive. And he delivered a message that made Dutch Schultz, the man who'd killed over 40 people, go pale. This is the story of the night Bumpy Johnson became untouchable. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand Harlem in 1933. This wasn't the Harlem Renaissance anymore. The Depression had hit hard. People were desperate. And when people are desperate, they gamble. The numbers racket, illegal lottery, was the lifeblood of Harlem. You could bet a nickel and win $50. For people making $7 a week, that nickel was hope, and hope was currency. Dutch Schultz saw that currency. He was a German Jewish mobster from the Bronx who'd made millions bootlegging during Prohibition. But Prohibition was ending, and Dutch needed a new empire. So he looked south to Harlem, saw all that money flowing through the numbers game, and decided he wanted it, all of it. There was just one problem. Harlem already had kings. Madame Stephanie St. Clair, the queen of numbers, and her enforcer, a young man named Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy was different from other muscle. He wasn't just a trigger man. He was smart, educated himself in prison reading Shakespeare and philosophy. He understood that respect in Harlem wasn't bought with fear. It was earned with loyalty. When Madame St. Clair's runners got robbed, Bumpy got the money back. When dirty cops tried to shake down black businesses, Bumpy made them disappear. Not always violently, sometimes just their careers, their reputations. He was strategic, and he refused to bow to Dutch Schultz. January 1933. Dutch sent emissaries to Harlem. They sat down with Madame St. Clair at her club on 133rd Street. The message was simple: work with Dutch, pay tribute, or get buried. Madame St. Clair, a Caribbean immigrant who'd built her empire from nothing, looked at these white men sitting in her club and said, "Get out." The emissaries turned to Bumpy, standing in the corner. "You want to be smart about this, boy?" Bumpy didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. That stare, the one that made men check their life insurance. The emissaries left, reported back to Dutch, and Dutch Schultz, who'd never been told no by anyone, certainly not by a black woman and her enforcer, made a decision: burn it all down, starting with him. He didn't just want Bumpy dead. He wanted it to be a message, public, brutal, the kind of death that makes everyone else fall in line. February 14th, 1933. Valentine's Day. Ironic, considering what was about to happen. Bumpy got a tip. Dutch's men were planning to hit Madame St. Clair's main counting house on Lenox Avenue at dawn. Bumpy went to check it out, solo. That was his first mistake. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe Bumpy knew exactly what he was walking into. The Cotton Club basement. It wasn't the famous club. That was downtown for white audiences. This was the real Cotton Club, the after-hours spot where Harlem's players came to drink, gamble, and settle scores. The basement was storage, crates of liquor, poker tables, and a single exit through a narrow staircase. Perfect place for a trap. 4:32 a.m. Bumpy descended those stairs. The room was dark except for one light bulb swinging from the ceiling. And then he heard it, the sound of safeties clicking off. 12 guns, 12 men stepping out of the shadows. Tommy, the executioner Vento, stepped forward. Tommy had killed 16 men, Always close range, always look them in the eye. He smiled. Dutch sends his regards. Bumpy stood there, hands at his sides, face calm. He looked around the room slowly, counting. 12. He looked back at Tommy. That all he sent? Tommy's smile faded. See, that's the thing about Bumpy Johnson that people didn't understand. He didn't posture, didn't bluff. If he said something, he meant it. And standing there, outnumbered 12-1, asking if that was all they sent, that wasn't bravado, that was calculation. You got about 5 seconds to beg, Tommy said, raising his gun. Bumpy tilted his head slightly. You're making a mistake. What mistake? You're about to be dead. The mistake, Bumpy said slowly, is thinking I came here alone. 12 guns stayed trained on him, but now there was hesitation, doubt. Tommy glanced at the stairs. Nothing. Looked back at Bumpy. You're bluffing. Bumpy smiled for the first time. Then shoot. Nobody shot. Because here's what Dutch Schultz's men didn't know. Bumpy Johnson had been fighting since he was 10 years old. Charleston, South Carolina, before he moved to Harlem. Street fights, prison riots, wars over territory. He'd learned something that most men never learned. Violence has a rhythm. And right now, standing in that basement, Bumpy controlled the rhythm. Tommy's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance. Bumpy moved. What happened next, nobody could fully explain afterward. The one survivor's testimony was confused, fragmented. But here's what we know. Bumpy didn't go for a gun. He went for the light. One punch, the hanging bulb shattered. Darkness, complete. Then chaos. The first shots came wild, panicked. Men shooting at shadows, at sounds. Tommy screaming, "Hold your fire! Hold your fire!" But fear doesn't listen to orders. In that darkness, Bumpy became something else. He knew that room, had played poker there 100 times, knew every crate, every table, every corner. Dutch's man didn't. One by one, you could hear them going down. Not from gunshots. Bumpy didn't waste bullets. He used his hands, used their confusion, used the fact that they were shooting each other in the panic. A scream, a body hitting the floor, another gunshot, another scream. Tommy tried to rally them. The stairs, get to the stairs! But Bumpy was already there. The violence lasted maybe 3 minutes. 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. And then, silence. When someone finally opened the basement door from upstairs, let light spill down those steps, here's what they found. 11 bodies. Not all dead, but all down. Broken bones, gunshot wounds from friendly fire, unconscious, bleeding. And one man, sitting on the floor against the wall, hyperventilating, gun still in his shaking hand. Marty Ice Pick Delaney, the only one still conscious. Bumpy was gone, vanished like smoke. Marty Delaney crawled up those stairs. Took him 20 minutes. Every step, agony. Broken ribs, maybe worse. He made it to the street as the sun was coming up. Flagged down a cab with blood-soaked money. Bronx, he gasped. Arthur Avenue. Dutch Schultz's headquarters. 8:17 a.m., Marty stumbled into Dutch's social club. Dutch was eating breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee, reading the newspaper. He looked up, saw Marty covered in blood, and went still. Where are the others? Marty couldn't speak at first, just shook his head. Where are my men? Dead, Marty finally whispered. All of them. He let me live. Dutch stood up slowly. He what? He let me live, to give you a message. The entire room went quiet. Dutch's lieutenants, his accountants, his bodyguards, everyone stopped, watched. What message? Dutch's voice was ice. Marty reached into his jacket. Dutch's men reached for their guns, but Marty pulled out a single playing card, the ace of spades, covered in blood. He placed it on the table in front of Dutch. He said to tell you, Harlem's not for sale, and if you send more men, send more cards. He's collecting a deck. Dutch Schultz stared at that card for a long time. His men waited for the order, waited for Dutch to unleash hell, to send 50 men to burn Harlem to the ground. Instead, Dutch picked up the card, studied it, then smiled. Not a happy smile, a resignation smile. He's got balls, I'll give him that. Boss, we can't let this... Dutch held up his hand. You know what it costs to go to war with someone who's not afraid to die? Someone who's smarter than you? Someone who has an entire neighborhood behind him? He shook his head. It costs everything. And for what? Numbers money? There's easier money. He dropped the card in the ashtray, lit it on fire. We're done in Harlem. Let Bumpy Johnson have it. The decision shocked everyone. Dutch Schultz, the man who'd gone to war with Lucky Luciano, who'd killed his own partners, who never backed down. Backed down. Why? Because Bumpy had done something even Dutch respected. He'd proven he was willing to die for his principles. And men like that, you don't fight them. You either kill them or you leave them alone. And Dutch couldn't kill him. Years later, in the 1970s, a reporter tracked down one of the Cotton Club's old employees, asked him what really happened that night. The old man smiled. You want the truth? Bumpy wasn't alone. What? He had 4 guys upstairs the whole time. They locked the basement door from the outside once Dutch's men went down, trapped them in. Bumpy could have killed all 12 if he wanted, but he let one live, on purpose. Because Bumpy understood something. Killing Dutch's men would start a war. Humiliating them, that ends it. Whether that's true or legend, nobody knows for sure. What we do know, after that night, Dutch Schultz never sent another man to Harlem. Bumpy Johnson became the undisputed king of Harlem's underworld, and for the next 35 years, he protected that neighborhood like it was his own family. Not with indiscriminate violence, with strategy, with intelligence, with a code. And that ace of spades, Bumpy kept it, framed it, hung it in his office. A reminder, respect isn't given, it's taken. February 14th, 1933, 12 men walked into a basement, 1 walked out, and Harlem was never the same. If this story hit you, smash that subscribe button. We're telling the Bumpy Johnson stories history forgot, the moments that made him a legend, the code that made him untouchable. Drop a like if you think Bumpy was the smartest man in Harlem. And in the comments, what would you have done if you were Dutch Schultz? More legendary stories coming next day. Don't miss it.